Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for another very special edition of Wowza Live with our host, Ned Dennison, and a guest, me. Ned?
Hello, everyone. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have one of our honorees, Steven Munatones, with us today. He won't let me interview him about his career, but he has agreed to talk about one of our other honorees, Penny Palfrey from Australia, and one of her epic swims. Just for those of you who don't know Steven, he competed at the international level. He won one of the major events in open water swimming. He then coached at the US national level for 9 years, and he's been involved with Athena and a keen observer of the sports for many years. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give us a little introduction of some of Penny's pedigree before this swim.
Yeah, Penny Palfrey has lived a very interesting life. She's traveled around the world. You know, she's raised 3 children. She really came into her own as a channel swimmer and marathon swimmer in her 40s. Previously, she was a very top-notch Australian swimmer, competed with all the best, in shorter races, but really in her 40s, after her children had, grown and left the household, she was really came into her own, and she had done everything from the Rottnest channel swim several times to pretty quick English channel swims at 9 hours. She did Cook Strait, Manhattan Island races. She was very competitive with the men. I think she beat most of them, actually.
She won that. She won the year I was there with her.
Okay, there you go. She did the Tampa Bay swim. She did everything that you could on the established channels. So, from Cook Strait to the English Channel to even more infrequently attempted channels, like between the Big Island of Hawaii and Maui. That's 65 kilometers. And she did Santa Barbara. So she did, lots of things. And around 2010, probably 2009 or so, she wanted to do other channels, off the beaten path channels. And that's where I come into her life.
So this channel in Hawaii, I'll have you pronounce it because I can't. Describe the obvious challenges of this channel.
Okay, so the channel we're talking about is really, if you're talking about a big channel in big water, this is it. And it is the channel between Oahu and Kauai. If you look at a map of the state of Hawaii, you have a bunch of islands sort of next to one another, and it's the ones people know about. It's the island of Oahu, the birthplace of the Ironman, the Waikiki rough water swim. Then you have the Maui channel, the Maui and Molokai, very close to one another. So on any given day, if you stand on, the shores of Oahu, you can see Molokai Island, you can see Maui, you can see Lanai. These are the well-known islands. And then you have the island of Kauai, which is far, far away from the other main islands of Hawaii. And if you look at the topography of the ocean topography, the water between, let's say, Maui, Molokai, and Lanai is relatively shallow. You have whales, you have sharks, you have jellyfish there. The water between Molokai and Oahu is deeper, and it is big water. And anybody who's done the Molokai Channel knows that huge swells come in between the island of Molokai and Oahu. But the water between Kauai and Oahu is massive. It's over 3,000 meters deep. It's over 10,000 feet deep. So what that means is the volcanic islands, as they develop sort of in a group here. And then Kauai was on its own separate underground volcano that built up. So that water in between there is really contains the strength of the Pacific Ocean. I mean, when you're talking swells in between Oahu and Kauai, you're talking massive swells, and the water just moves through there like nothing else. Again, you might have something.
Help people understand what you mean by a massive swell. A massive
Okay.
swell for me is when I can't see the boat.
Yes. Yes. That's good. So, we talk about places like the English Channel, Lake Ontario. We even talk about swells and wind in around Manhattan Island. That's all true. So when you're swimming as a swimmer, your boat goes above you, and then you go over the boat. And occasionally, if you're on the boat looking up at the swimmer, there may be one story above you. Certainly, you're higher than the mast of the boat, and then the reverse goes, and then then the swimmer is way down below, and the people on the boat are looking down at you. In Hawaii, one story just doesn't fit the bill. I mean, and because it looks like the entire world, it looks like the horizon is rising up out of the ocean. And it's, the first time you're out there, at least in my case, I was frightened. I mean, I was really worried. Like, this entire body of the water, it's like if you saw the movie The Perfect Storm. I mean, it's just a wall of water coming. Now, fortunately, when you're out there, it's just rolling seas. So you go way high and way low. And in the middle of the day, when the sun is out, and the sun is often out in Hawaii, you see someone way higher than you, and then you see them way below you. Your eyes are on them all the time, and they've got a kayaker next to them. So, everything's under control. But imagine doing that at night when all you can see is a little blinky, the little green blinky. And if there's any kind of a wind, there's that surface texture, then, you sort of see the blinky sometimes, and you sort of not most of the time. And if you're an observer, or you're as part of the escort boat, you're focusing on a little tiny light amongst ocean swells that are just massive. So, that's what Penny did. Penny did want to become the first person to swim between Oahu and Kauai. And there were other people who had attempted this. Locally in Hawaii, where I lived for 5 years, it was always this mythical thing. We actually believed in the 70s and 80s that someone eventually would be able to swim from Oahu to Kauai. Now, people had already swum from Greta Anderson, who tried and was pulled out because great white sharks were around her, to Keo Nakama, to Harry Huffaker, Forrest Nelson. Lots of people have swum between Molokai and Oahu, roughly 40 kilometers, but nobody had actually done anything between Oahu and Kauai. And now you're talking 93 plus kilometers. You can't see Oahu from Kauai. You just trust your boat captain, and the boat captain, Don, was an excellent boat captain. He does a lot of stuff between Kauai and Niihau, sort of the forbidden island in Hawaii. He's an excellent boat captain, and he knows what he's doing. So when Penny wanted to do her first big, huge adventure swim, she got the best. On her crew, she got Bill Goding. Bill Goding is a rescue diver professionally, as part of the U.S. military. So his job is to save people. He's been a long.
I think what you just need to say is they offered the Baywatch lead to Bill and he turned it down.
Yes, yes. Bill is a great guy. He's done many channels himself. He's been a lifeguard. He knows his stuff. I believe he's an EMT, and he certainly has been trained. His job is to keep people safe in dangerous waters. So he was, part of her crew. He had, what's the name? I'm embarrassed to. He had the best kayaker. I'm embarrassed to.
It'll come to you. Keep going.
Kozlovich. He is the premier kayaker between Molokai and Oahu. He was her kayaker. I was the observer. We're talking November of 2010. Penny had tried to do this in March of that year. She had the same crew members, and she had Forrest Nelson was her observer. And so she had people to keep her safe and keep her across. I flew to Hawaii. She flew in from Australia. Bill and Jeff Kozlovich were there. They're locals to Hawaii. Don lives and works in Kauai, so he knows that channel very well. He's a deep sea fisherman, so there was nobody better who knows that channel. And we all gathered in Oahu. We strategized for a few times. We saw what she did or she told us what happened in the case with when Forrest was doing there in March 2010. And we thought that we could, learn from that DNF. And
how far did she get on the first one, Steve?
The first one, I almost halfway from what I understand. I don't know the exact distance. And Penny was at her peak. She was so fit, obviously mentally tough. The distance was not an issue. It was just an issue that the conditions would allow for her to make it. And I recall that we got to Oahu, and because the starting point from this point is a very, very remote. It is the most remote place in all of Oahu. It is on the western side of Oahu. No homes are there, no hotels are there. It's a very difficult point to get to. So what we did is Penny drove her way, to that starting point, and literally had to walk to where she went. The rest of us went on a boat, and we boated over near the finish, near the start, and then she took off. And, we had a great day. She got halfway. I remember she got halfway before nightfall. She got halfway faster than 12 hours. It was, I don't remember exactly, 11 hours and 45, 50 minutes or so. So Dawn had really planned this out. She had a nice push behind her, huge ocean swells. The swells were, these 2-3 story, differentials between her and the boat. But she had Jeff Kozlovich, right next to her. We had shark shields on the kayak that we had to switch out every 6 hours. So we'd already done 2 rotations of the shark shields. She was swimming fast. She was feeling good. Her stroke rate was in the 80s. She knew that she was moving quickly. And then everything just went south. and it was the quickest thing I had seen to that point, going south. Um, Sun was setting, and as the sun was setting, she put her little blinky on. She was feeding well. Everything was going smoothly. Bill was on the boat with me. I was on the deck, and so was and Jeff was on the kayak next to her. Um, as the sun literally set down in the horizon, now it's dark. All I heard was this scream that I will never forget. I mean, it was a scream of total and complete pain. Um, Penny screamed. My first thought, Bill's first thought was she attacked by a shark? I mean, that was literally the only thing that I could imagine would have caused this emission of this painful, painful scream. Jeff was right next to her. Jeff, knows the waters of Hawaii extremely well. And we're yelling, what happened? Dawn immediately, we were probably no more than 50 meters away from her at the time. Because they had such large swells, we didn't want to be right next to her. We wanted to be a little bit of separation, but it was dark. And we're yelling across the way, across the ocean, what happened? Immediately, Jeff doesn't talk. He just gets Penny, and Dawn takes moves the boat closer, and Jeff brings Penny to the boat, and Penny's yelling, "I'm on fire! I'm on fire!" Um, we just assumed, I just assumed that she hit a bunch of Portuguese man of war, but Penny had hit Portuguese man of war and jellyfish before. She had swum in waters of Hawaii, excuse me, before. So this was really unusual. Like, how she's a tough woman. She'd been stung before, but why this time was she in so much pain? And so she goes to the rear of the boat. I go over to grab her. I literally put my two arms down, and she's putting her hands up. And then she yells, and I'll never forget this. I mean, "Don't touch me." And I'm thinking, I don't understand. So she somehow, and when I think back of it, I don't know how she does it. I mean, somehow she crawls up the ladder, climbs up the ladder herself, and just not face plants, but falls down on the deck of the boat. Remember, it's dark. We don't really know what's happening, and she's just yelling, "My skin's on fire! My skin's on fire!" And so what we're doing is we put cold water on her. Bill at this point is now in his emergency mode. I mean, this guy, if you have an emergency, you want Bill Goading in your boat. Jeff by this time has tied up his kayak, and he's on the deck. I'm on the deck. Bill's attending her. And we assessed that it was some kind of jellyfish that was around her that had attacked her. Bill had scraped off the jellyfish, which we later learned were box jellyfish, and they had just entangled her both arms around her torso, her neck, her upper thighs. She was a mess. Bill, did what he could to calm her down. As soon as she was on the boat, Don took that boat and was flying. Remember, we had just crossed halfway, so it was easier for us, and with the direction of the swells, it was easier for us to get to Kauai than it was to go back to Oahu. Again, I don't remember exactly what time, and let's call it 7 or 8 p.m. at night. We're out in the middle of a channel where nobody's out there. I mean, it isn't like the English Channel, and you could sort of see some lights in the distance. It's pitch black, and Don is just firing them over, and we're just flying over the ocean swells, just flying as he's going as fast as we can, because we don't know exactly what she was stung with. and how badly she was just screaming in pain. And then because we're flying, we 3 men actually had to hold Penny down. I mean, she was convulsing. I mean, I was really afraid that we would have no more Penny. Really, that's how bad it was. I remember literally lying on her, I think around her knees and her thighs, just so she wouldn't be bouncing and flying all over. And all of a sudden, her body was convulsing what I thought was the longest time. And, to travel another, again, I don't remember the exact, if that distance is 93 kilometers and we had just finished, 45, or let's say 40 of those kilometers, we
At
still had
least
a
it's
long,
at least 2 hours to go.
yes. And he's going the full throttle with the current behind, or the ocean swells behind us, full throttle. So Penny is thrashing about. We're, at this point, we've got all the technical, the tentacles off of her, and all of a sudden, her body just stops moving. Bill's again in his safety mode, making sure that all her vitals, she's still alive. Again, it's pitch black, but she just stops. She stopped convulsing, and she basically slept. I think that the poison had just overwhelmed her body. And, we wrapped her up, and, go into shore. Dawn had called ahead of time. And so we knew that, we had an emergency. And as soon as we got into shore, there was somebody there, and we took her to the local hospital that fortunately was like 5 minutes away from the port. We take her in, and now we're talking, it must have been, by the time she was in the hospital, it was past, I would say, it was probably closer to midnight, maybe 11 p.m. So again, on Kauai, the population is not so big. The emergency room is pretty much sleepy. There's not traffic in the emergency room. And Penny comes in, they get her under, they take care of her, and we literally went back to the boat, and we all slept on the boat, including Dawn. We just, we were close enough to the hospital. But again, it's a smaller hospital. So we decided to go back to the boat, and we just slept on the boat. Then the doctor said, when stable, we'll give you a call. The next morning we show up, Penny's there, typical Penny, smiling and apologizing for the problems that caused us. I mean, it's only in our world, I think, where, we have these people who go through such pain and experience such discomfort. And, a swimmer like Penny has a wherewithal to apologize to us for causing all this problem. And, her skin was just a total wreck.
So, Steve, you at this point had been around the world. You'd done some big swims. You'd witnessed some big swims. How big was this compared to what you'd done before? Was this twice the danger, twice the distance? How did it, order of magnitude? What was this?
This was like just shockingly. This is a shock to my system. I mean, this is literally the first time that I thought that somebody could die under my watch. It was that serious. Again, this is in 2010, where, and this is November. So I think Fran Crippen had just passed away around a month before. So, everybody in the open water swimming world was on edge. And because Penny was that elite swimmer, I was just so worried. I mean, it was a big swim, never been done before, with one of the world's best channel and marathon swimmers who had lots of experience in the Hawaiian channels herself. and we had, Jeff Kozlovich, the, best kayaker out there. We had Bill Goding, the best emergency rescue technician you could ever hope for. You had Don, unbelievable captain who knew those waters. We still had problems that were unseen. Nobody saw this, swarm of jellyfish. We couldn't see her, and it happened immediately. No warning. No, we thought, oh, maybe she's going to run into box jellyfish. Just came out of the blue.
I want to contrast this. A world's elite channel swimmer, very experienced crew, knowledgeable, all those things. I want to contrast it to people who sometimes approach me who say, I did a 7K and now I want to do one of the world's big channels at 30K plus. My crew is going to be my 85-year-old father who's always seasick on a boat, and I'm going to bring my 12-year-old son, and they're going to be my crew. I've never done more than 6 hours. I'm still not sure what I'm going to be feeding on. And oh, by the way, I've been training in a pond in Iowa, and I'm going to be going to the English Channel. I've never been in salt water before, but we're going to arrive the day before, so I'll be plenty ready. And when I look at those two, I think, well, actually, the novice is in a more dangerous situation than Penny was in.
Yeah.
So even though people are going, well, my swim's only 30K, Penny had already knocked off some 60K swims and had experienced just about everything imaginable at that point. So that for you, Steve, was a real change. Your first big adventure swim. You've been part of a few others, which I'm sure we'll get to in one way or another in the future. Lessons learned?
I think she did everything right. Very much, Penny built up to this swim. Penny started out, with smaller swims, did stuff like the Rottnest Channel in Western Australia, did the Molokai Channel, did everything right. She organized everything herself. She had some sponsors. We had some media for her. She did everything right. It's just that Mother Nature decided that they were going to plop some box jellyfish in her way. And as it turned out, Penny had this unfulfilled desire for, a major, unprecedented swim that she wanted to achieve. And that actually gave birth over a period of time to her next major swim, which was successful. So, the lessons learned was she did everything right. It would just Mother Nature just always has the upper hand. And it was my pleasure. It was my honor to be part of this, even though it was did not finish. It was as heroic, iconic swim that I ever seen, even with a DNF. And so, she should always be proud of that swim. I was honored to be with Don and Jeff and Bill. It was great to see. And it was at the same time shocking to see when you're out there at night, far, far away from, safety.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm sure Penny will smile and cringe and maybe shed a tear. And I'm sure her husband, Chris, will be going, oh, I don't want to hear this one again. Oh,
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.